The studio was wired like a live wire, camera cranes hovering, applause signs blinking, the kind of heat that makes cologne turn into weather. Trump took his mark with that familiar showman's grin, ready to turn the night into a rally disguised as television. Then Denzel stepped into frame, no entourage, no grin, just the calm of a man who'd buried noise and kept the signal. The countdown hit 3, 2, and the moderator barely finished the intro when Trump leaned forward, "Tell Hollywood we don't need lectures." A ripple of laughter. Denzel didn't blink. He slid a thin folder onto the desk as if placing a mirror between them. "You build walls," he said, voice quiet enough to make microphones lean in. "I break chains." The room snapped to stillness. Even the lights seemed to listen. Trump smirked. "Chains? People need order." "Order without dignity is a cage," Denzel answered, steady. "And cages make liars out of flags." A gasp cut through the audience. The moderator reached for a pivot, too late. Denzel was already painting a scene, not a speech: a night shift nurse loading a lunchbox at 4 a.m., a small-town contractor paying overtime in cash because the paperwork punishes decency, a kid practicing lines from the school play in a motel hallway. No violins, no sermon, just the texture of lives that don't trend. Trump rolled his hand like a maestro calling for an applause line. "Nice stories. This country needs steel, not feelings." "Steel is only strong because someone's hands learned pain," Denzel said. He didn't raise his voice, he compressed it, and that compression hit harder than volume. The crowd's laughter thinned into breath. A camera tightened on Trump's jaw. The tell was small, but the room felt it. This wasn't celebrity sparring. It was a pressure test on what words could carry. The moderator tried again. "Gentlemen, policy. Policy is a poem with consequences," Denzel said, tapping the folder. "Your verses build walls. Mine cut locks." The red light above camera 2 burned brighter, as if the lens itself leaned forward. Somewhere in the control room, a producer mouthed, "We've got something." Trump leaned back, spreading his hands wide like a man owning the stage. "People want protection. They want walls. They want borders." His voice carried the weight of a salesman closing a deal. The crowd clapped, but it wasn't thunder, it was routine, predictable, the kind of applause that comes more from habit than conviction. Denzel didn't chase it. He didn't even move. His stillness was louder. "You mistake fear for safety," Denzel said slowly, eyes locked on Trump. "You build walls high enough to block out the world, but not high enough to block out the truth. Fear doesn't protect, it rots. And when it rots, it spreads." His words hung in the air like smoke that no vent could clear. Trump chuckled into the mic, "Here we go, Hollywood drama. You want poetry, I'll give you facts. Without borders, you don't have a country." Denzel tilted his head just slightly, not as a reaction but as an X-ray. "And without people, you don't have a country either. Walls don't build nations. Hands do. Voices do. The people you dismiss, the nurses, the roofers, the teachers holding 2 jobs, those are the bricks. And you think you own the mortar?" A murmur rippled through the audience. They weren't clapping. They were leaning in. Trump adjusted his cuff, the grin flickering. The moderator tried to regain control. "Mr. Washington, are you saying security doesn't matter?" Denzel turned to him, voice even, steady. "I'm saying security without humanity is a fortress for the few. A country is supposed to be a home. And you don't build a home by stacking bricks, you build it by unlocking doors." The studio lights hummed louder than the crowd. Trump tapped the desk twice, a tell of irritation. He fired back, "Strong countries need strong leaders. And strong leaders don't cry over chains." Denzel leaned in, his voice a blade wrapped in calm. "No. Strong leaders break them." The line didn't just land, it detonated. Phones lifted, tweets flew, and for the first time that night, the room belonged to him. The moderator's earpiece buzzed with frantic voices from the control room, but he knew better than to cut in. The crowd was no longer laughing, no longer predictable, they were holding their breath, waiting. Trump pushed forward, eyes narrowing. Chains, walls, doors, you're throwing around metaphors. People need results, not riddles. Denzel clasped his hands, calm as stone. Results? Let's talk results. You build a wall, a contractor gets paid. You break a chain, a child gets healthcare. Which one lasts longer? His words were slow, deliberate, like he was laying down bricks of his own, but these bricks build vision, not barriers. Trump tried to smirk, but the timing betrayed him. Sounds nice on paper. But in the real world, budgets matter. Dreams don't pay for hospitals. That was when Denzel opened the folder. He slid a single chart forward, angled just enough for the cameras to catch. These numbers aren't dreams. They're children. 12 million of them. 12 million who lose healthcare when your budget's cut Medicaid like it's just another line item. Gasps rippled. The graphic glowed on the studio monitor. Red bars rising like alarms. The audience shifted in their seats. This wasn't a sound bite. It was impact. Trump leaned back, waving a hand. Emotional numbers. Always the same story. Denzel didn't raise his voice. No. Always the same children. He locked eyes with Trump. You call it math. I call it collateral damage. Tell me, if those kids were in this room, would you laugh? The silence was surgical. Cameras zoomed tighter. Even the moderator froze, caught between his script and the electricity in the air. Trump shifted in his chair, forced a laugh that sounded thinner now. You think you can guilt a nation into greatness? Denzel straightened, the calm never leaving. No. I think you can remind a nation what greatness actually means. Not walls. Not wealth. People. The audience broke. Applause surged, not prompted, not polite, but real. The control room panicked, trying to cut to commercial, but the director whispered, "Don't touch it. This is history." Trump adjusted his tie, the grin gone now, replaced by something tighter, an edge of irritation wrapped in control. He leaned into the mic. You sound good, Denzel. Real good. But speeches don't build jobs. Borders do. Discipline does. That's leadership. His voice carried the cadence of applause lines he'd used 1,000 times before. But this time, the crowd didn't bite. The rhythm was broken. Denzel waited for the silence, then filled it, not with volume, but with precision. Leadership isn't about making people clap. It's about making them stand taller when the clapping stops. A wall divides. Breaking chains unites. Which one do you think lasts after the cameras turn off? The moderator glanced nervously at his notes. He had a list of questions about budgets, trade, energy policy, but they were ash now. The story in the room was undeniable. He tried to pivot. Mr. Trump, Mr. Washington, let's keep this on policy. But Trump cut in, snapping, this is policy. Strong borders, strong country. Weak borders, weak country. And people like him want to open the gates and let everyone in. That was when Denzel leaned forward, his tone steady but cutting like glass. People like me? You mean Americans who remember that this country was built by those who didn't belong at first but worked until they did? You mean nurses who save lives regardless of papers, soldiers who fight wars regardless of accent, teachers who show up in classrooms with holes in their shoes but fire in their hearts? If that's who you mean by people like me, then yes, I'll break every chain you try to wrap around them. The audience erupted, not just applause this time, but cheers. The kind of sound that doesn't follow party lines, but heart lines. Trump's eyes darted toward the control booth, as if searching for rescue. In the front row, a woman stood, clapping hard, tears streaming. The camera found her face, and suddenly the network realized, this wasn't just debate. It was a moment. And moments, once they escape, can't be put back in the box. Trump's jaw tightened. He raised a finger toward Denzel, jabbing the air like a gavel. You don't get it. People want strength, not sympathy. They want order, not open doors. They want a president who builds, not an actor who preaches. His voice rose, sharper now, aiming not at Denzel but at the crowd, desperate to pull them back into his rhythm. Denzel didn't flinch. He let the silence after Trump's words breathe, stretch, settle. Then he leaned closer to the mic, his voice so calm it forced the audience to lean in. You confuse cruelty with strength. You confuse shutting people out with leadership. Strength isn't locking the door, it's keeping it open, even when fear tells you to slam it shut. That's not weakness. That's courage. A low murmur rolled through the crowd, not boos, not applause, just a shift. People turning, whispering, rethinking. Trump smirked, trying to reclaim the upper hand. Courage? Please. Courage is sending soldiers to protect our border. Courage is saying no when the world tells us to say yes. Denzel's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in focus. Soldiers know real courage, Mr. Trump. And do you know what every veteran I've ever spoken to told me? That the hardest part of service isn't fighting enemies, it's coming home and wondering if their country still remembers what they fought for. You talk about walls. They talk about freedom. That's the difference. The audience gasped. One young man in uniform, seated near the back, stood slowly and clapped. The cameras swung instantly to catch him, his applause echoing louder than the studio's mics. Trump shifted again, tapping his fingers on the desk, his rehearsed grin fading into frustration. The moderator tried to jump in, but the energy in the room had already changed. Denzel wasn't debating. He was defining. And for the first time, Trump's showmanship wasn't the headline. Denzel's clarity was. The lights above the stage burned hotter, or maybe it was just the tension tightening every breath. Trump leaned forward, his voice dripping with sarcasm. So now you're the voice of the people, Hollywood telling us how real Americans live. Give me a break. Denzel didn't blink. He let the words hang, heavy but hollow, then answered with a measured calm that cut sharper than any insult. Real Americans don't need me to speak for them. They've been speaking for themselves all along, you just stopped listening. You build walls so you don't have to hear them. I break chains so their voices carry. The crowd shifted again, that restless murmur rising. Phones went up, lenses catching every second. Trump tried to wave it off. Nice slogan. You should put it on a movie poster. But Denzel leaned in, his tone like iron wrapped in velvet. It's not a slogan. It's survival. You can laugh at me, Mr. Trump, but don't you dare laugh at the single mother in Detroit working 2 jobs just to keep her kids alive. Don't you dare laugh at the veteran sleeping in his car tonight because promises turn to dust. Don't you dare laugh at the children who hear the word cuts and know it means hunger. You want walls? They already live inside them. Gasps turned to raw applause. The moderator's eyes widened. This wasn't just debate, it was confession, indictment, sermon all in one. Trump chuckled nervously, tugging at his tie. That's cute. You think stories win elections. I build. I deliver. I win. Denzel sat back slowly, composed. You win headlines. I fight for legacies. History doesn't remember the walls built to divide, it remembers the chains broken to unite. The crowd erupted, half cheering, half stunned silent. The split wasn't along politics, it was along truth. And truth had just shifted the ground beneath Trump's feet. Trump leaned hard on the desk, palms pressing flat, eyes narrowing like he was staring down an opponent in the ring. You think you're untouchable, huh? You think your words matter more than results. I built towers, businesses, a brand known worldwide. What did you build? The audience stirred, half a challenge, half a trap. But Denzel didn't hesitate. He leaned in, voice steady, every syllable carrying like a verdict. You built towers. I built futures. You built walls. I broke chains. And when the dust settles, people don't remember the height of your buildings, they remember the height of their hope. That's what lasts. The studio snapped to silence. The line didn't just land, it detonated. Phones went up, tweets fired out in real time. The moderator's pen froze mid-note. Trump's jaw flexed, but he forced a laugh, trying to disguise the crack. "Hope doesn't pay bills," he muttered. Denzel clasped his hands, calm, unshaken. "Neither does fear. And fear is all you're selling." His words echoed like a hammer hitting stone. From the back row, someone shouted, "Say it again." The crowd rippled, hungry now, alive. Trump tried to reclaim the stage. "You're all talk. No action. You read speeches. I run the world." Denzel's gaze cut sharp, controlled. "No, you run from the truth. And here's the truth, a nation built on walls will crumble in silence. A nation built on breaking chains will roar for generations." The roar came right on cue, applause, cheers, even a few who stood. The control room director whispered into the headset, "We've lost the script. Let it ride. This is bigger than us." And for the first time, Trump looked smaller, not because Denzel raised his voice, but because he refused to shrink. The moderator leaned forward, desperate to restore balance, his voice trembling just slightly. "Gentlemen, let's keep this civil. This is a debate, not a rally." But the words fell flat. The room had already chosen its rhythm, and it pulsed to Denzel's cadence. Trump slammed his hand on the desk, the sound sharp through the mic. "You don't get to lecture me. I was elected. I set policy. You're just an actor reading lines someone else wrote." His smirk returned for a beat, waiting for laughter, but none came. Denzel inhaled slowly, exhaled even slower. Then he leaned into the mic, his eyes locked on Trump with the weight of someone who'd lived every line he spoke. "The difference between us? You chase applause. I carry truth. And truth doesn't need a script, it needs courage." The audience burst, not in partisan cheers, but in a human reaction, raw and unfiltered. Trump tried to wave them down, but the noise only grew, a tide he couldn't command. Denzel didn't raise his voice, he lowered it. "You mock my craft, but actors tell stories so people see themselves. Leaders are supposed to do the same. Instead, you build walls to keep people invisible. I break chains so they can stand in the light." The applause surged again, some people whistling, others shouting, "That's right." The moderator looked helpless, his note cards useless now. Trump leaned back, forcing a scoff. "Chains, walls, light, this is theater." Denzel nodded once, eyes steady. "If telling the truth feels like theater to you, maybe you've forgotten what reality looks like." The audience gasped, then clapped so loud the director nearly cut to commercial just to control the chaos. But in the booth, someone whispered the truth, "Don't cut. This is history being written." Trump leaned toward the camera now, bypassing Denzel, speaking straight to the millions watching at home. "Don't be fooled. He's here to sound righteous, to play the hero. But when it comes to running a country, you need power, not poetry." His tone was sharp, confident, rehearsed, lines meant to echo across headlines. But Denzel didn't chase the camera. He stayed locked on Trump, his presence pulling the room back to him. His voice dropped lower, steadier. "Power without compassion is tyranny. Poetry without courage is empty. But when you break chains, when you lift voices, when you open doors, that's not poetry. That's progress." The audience stirred again, leaning forward, breaths shallow. The silence that followed wasn't weakness, it was gravity. Trump jabbed a finger across the table. "You think you're better than me? You think words change history?" Denzel leaned in, unshaken. "History is nothing but words carved into memory. Lincoln didn't build walls, he tore them down. King didn't stay silent, he broke chains. And one day, people will remember this moment not because you shouted, but because I stood." The room erupted, applause breaking like thunder, the kind that doesn't ask permission. Some stood, some shouted, some cried. Trump's face flushed, his practiced smile collapsing into a tight grimace. He gripped the edge of the desk, knuckles white. The moderator, stunned, whispered into his mic, we need to wrap soon." But everyone knew, the debate was already decided. The headline wasn't Trump's walls. It was Denzel's chains, broken live, in front of millions. And for the first time all night, Trump had no line ready. No comeback. Just silence. The cameras kept rolling, but the debate had already tipped into something larger than ratings. Trump leaned back, arms crossed, lips tight, the grin gone for good. The moderator shuffled his cards, his voice shaky, final remarks, 30 seconds each. He turned first to Trump. Trump straightened, forcing authority back into his tone. America doesn't survive on feelings. It survives on walls, strength, and leaders who aren't afraid to keep people out when they don't belong. His words echoed, but hollow, like a hammer striking a cracked bell. Then it was Denzel's turn. He didn't rush. He didn't raise his voice. He let the silence stretch until the room was his again. America, he said slowly, was never meant to be a fortress. It was meant to be a promise. And promises don't live behind walls. They live in chains broken, doors opened, voices heard. You build walls, Mr. Trump. I break chains. That's the difference. The studio erupted. Not applause on cue, not polite clapping, but a roar that shook the air. People stood, chanting, some even crying. Phones lit up like stars, capturing a moment that felt less like debate and more like history bending in real time. Trump tried to speak again, but the moderator cut to black, too late. The clip was already alive, spreading across Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. Within hours it trended worldwide. You build walls. I break chains. By morning, it wasn't just a quote. It was a movement. Protest signs carried it. Hashtags flooded with it. Teachers wrote it on chalkboards. Veterans repeated it at rallies. And for millions who had felt small, ignored, locked out, those words weren't a slogan. They were a blueprint. Denzel hadn't shouted. He hadn't performed. He had simply stood his ground. And in doing so, he gave people something Trump never could, the power to believe walls can fall, and chains can break. Walls don't define a nation. People do. And when leaders build walls to silence voices, it takes courage to break chains. If this story moved you, share it, comment below, and never forget, truth is louder than fear.